why are we sat here at Aquasis? So we're here at Aquasis today with a lovely backdrop. So the breeze is blowing with palm trees and the ocean behind us. What brought you to Turkey?
It was by accident, actually, because a friend of mine thought about maybe buying an apartment in Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
So we were just looking around for her. She ended up buying an apartment in Puerto Rico, Gran Canaria, and I ended up buying an apartment here.
Ava, Norwegian Ava, if I'm correct.
Yes.
How are you
correct.
doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Welcome to the podcast. Really excited to chat with you. I always love a foreign accent, so I'll be curious about where you come from, what you do. But this is Didim TV podcast. And yeah, let's just start. Why are we sat here at Aquasis? So we're here at Aquasis today with a lovely backdrop. So the breeze is blowing with palm trees and the ocean behind us. What brought you to Turkey?
It was by accident, actually, because a friend of mine thought about maybe buying an apartment in Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
So we were just looking around for her. She ended up buying an apartment in Puerto Rico, Gran Canaria, and I ended up buying an apartment here.
So you got your friend to blame.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, and how long ago was that? When are we talking?
I bought it 10 years ago, and this spring we moved in. Next spring, 10 years ago.
Wow. So has a lot changed? Are you in Didim,
Yeah.
Altrincham, Mavashire? Where are you?
Mavashire?
Mavashire, okay. So has a lot changed in 10 years in Mavashire?
A lot.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I think we notice a lot of changes, and that's really encouraging as well. We see that the city, the council, is actually taking a lot of responsibility for tidying, making things more beautiful, infrastructure. And the infrastructure in Turkey is really also improving. So in the beginning, when we moved here, we took the flight to Izmir, and we took the ordinary road to Didim.
Mm-hmm.
But now we have the highway. It's beautiful. So it's really improving. Year by year, we see some new things happening.
Yeah, I've noticed, I guess pandemic times, what seemed to happen was not only, it was spoke before about a lot of businesses, restaurants, renovating, taking that time down to, upscale.
Yeah, making improvements.
And making improvements. Yeah. And what we also saw from the council, the Belediye at that point, was they spent a lot of money on the roads. Mavashire's had a huge improvement in the roads around there, and the lighting system. The walkways now are incredible. And that's happened a lot around the area. We've got the amphitheatre, which is what the...
Yeah.
Is it amphitheatre? Not amphitheatre. Amphitheatre. 4,000-seater amphitheatre with landscape, gardens.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's gorgeous.
It's lovely. And there seems, I think, yes, we've had big changes in 10 years, but over the last 2 or 3 years, and when we talk about infrastructure, new roads, quality paths, it's amazing to see the money that's been invested in the area. And I do wonder, do we think that that's due to that we're getting more visitors now, we're having more investment into the area, or are they just pulled their socks up, as we say in the UK? They've got their game together. It's interesting, but it's all for the benefit of the area. What do you do in Norway, if you don't mind me asking? So let's have a look at Norway, and then we'll come back to Didim, Altrincham, Mavashire.
I'm working in a state bank.
In a state bank? Is that lots of responsibility?
Yes, of course it is, but it's also it's through the government what they want to do. It's a housing bank, so it's actually we are doing investments for people who are not easily getting their own apartment. In Norway, more than 80% own their own apartment or their own house, so it's a high level of ownership. But I thought Turkey is quite okay too.
Yeah, I'm surprised at that figure, because if you look at Germany, it's the opposite. It's 70 or 80% of people don't own their own home or apartment.
Yeah.
That's it. I wonder, what is that a feeling of security from a Norwegian's point of view, or?
For sure, and also the state bank started after the Second World War because it needed a lot of rebuilding. So it was really the government went in and did a lot of investment in building houses. So and it's I think it's kind of security as well. Yes, for sure.
And where we have a lot of viewers and listeners from around the world, and I'm asking this question for the UK listeners and viewers at the moment. Because it seems the UK is in an interesting point financially, and many people think there's an economic crash coming. How does that feel in Norway at the moment?
Well, we also feel it because the interests are going up, and the sale of the properties are going a bit down. But we have a government that this today actually are putting forward the budget for the Norwegian state economy, so we will see what they are doing, what kind of strings they are pulling. But for sure, we are in the same situation as the rest of Europe.
That sounds like a very important meeting that's happening today. I mean, if a normal meeting is here and then an important meeting is there, we're above that by the sounds of. That's a pretty incredible meeting. And is that purely for Norway? Do you factor in neighbours around you? What does that look like?
What you talk about?
I'm curious. Is that because how much? So it's a Norwegian budget meeting.
Yeah.
How much of the global economy, the rest of Scandinavia, impacts on a meeting?
Yeah, when the government makes the budget for Norway, for sure, all international relations are important as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the war in Ukraine is really giving a large impact for us, especially for electric and all these things. Everything costs goes up. So we have had a pandemic that was severe. We managed that, but also now, of course, we are influenced by the rest of Europe. So it's even though we're not part of the European Union, we are closely connected to it through financial relations. So yeah, it has an impact.
So I just bringing that, because I imagine you're with a role like that, Eva, you're good with figures, you're organised. You must be. I'm thinking there's no way. I'm not that good with numbers and figures, and my organisational skills can be questioned at times. But I'm aware that are you a member on the committee at your Citesi, your complex that you live on?
Yes.
Right. Okay. And so you're in Mavashire. Which complex is that?
It's Prime Blue 3.
Prime Blue 3.
Yeah.
And how on earth did you manage to find yourself on the committee? So committee is, explain what a committee is and being a member of that to our audience.
Yeah, a committee is the ones that are dealing with all common issues for the complex. So we are 56 owners in that complex of ours. It's the most beautiful complex, of course, in Didim. We are 50% Scandinavians and 50% of Turkish-speaking people. I will say Turkish-speaking because a lot of them live in Europe.
Yep.
And I was actually asked, and I didn't know what I said yes, what I accepted, when I was asked 5-6 years ago to go into the committee, and I was voted in as a Bashkan. And it's been really interesting. It's really a learning curve.
You mentioned Bashkan. What can you elaborate? Explain what a Bashkan is.
The leader of the committee.
Oh, so you're the leader of the committee, right? Okay. Yeah. So you not only got voted in, thrown into that, you're then the leader. Okay. Yeah. Can you give us some insight into what that looks like being a committee member? Because I would say that there are people out there who are maybe interested in being a committee member. Likewise, maybe people that who wouldn't want to be, but by understanding what a committee is and a role of a committee member, it might be more accessible for them to take up a role. Yeah. So, give us a bit of insight. What's it like being on a committee member, the trials, tribulations, successes, challenges?
Yeah, it's great fun, first and foremost. I think it's great fun to have that responsibility. But also it is a responsibility, isn't it? So it is. We have many strong people in the complex who wants this done and wants this done and this done, and then we have others who are completely opposite, have opposite opinions. So as a member of the committee, you need to actually value what is they saying. They are saying this, and you need to choose. So you need to choose what you think really is the most important for the complex. And sometimes that's involving actually spending quite a lot in maintenance. And we are fortunate to have a lot of Scandinavian owners who are really concerned about the maintenance. So we are spending money on that, and I think that gives value because the complex looks beautiful all the time. And if there are any need of repairs, drainage, anything like that, we see to it at once. Not everybody do have that same priority. And I think many of the owners with the Turkish background, they are not used to thinking like that. Mm-hmm. So it is a discussion every year at the General Assembly. So do we need the money? Why should we do this? Can't we just not pay so much and just have fun and relax? But a building that's turning now 10 years in our case, it really needs attention. Mm-hmm. And then it comes into having a good relation or having somebody who can stay here all year around and taking care of it. So we have an agreement with a management company to do this daily stuff and following through our responsibility on a daily basis. So we come together once a month and have a meeting and we discuss things, and the management company comes up with things that needed to be done or things they think is necessary improvements. So it's actually quite okay. But then on the other side, if you don't have enough money to go through it, it could be quite nerve-wracking.
Okay, so there's a budget to manage there. And you said you come together and meet once a month. So I'm right in thinking you don't live here full time?
No.
So with the modern advances of technology, so are people coming together online and physically as well? Is that a mix every month?
Yeah, if we are here, like we are all in the committee, we are here, so then we have the physical meetings, of course. We just had the General Assembly, but otherwise we meet on WhatsApp, a video conference.
Too easy. And the annual meeting, is it AGM or EGM?
AGM.
AGM. So
Annual General Meeting?
The Annual General Meeting, there we go. I should just really think what those letters mean, but I've had the pleasure of experiencing 3 or 4 of those over the past few years, and I find them very interesting. As you said, there's difference of opinions, and I find that people come forward with wanting certain things actioning, new facilities, new services. However, then when there needs to be the cost met with that, an increase of cost, then people then, oh, well, no, we don't want that now. So I always find that quite interesting. I'm going to ask a question about what the cost is of your annual maintenance, because I find it differs from complex to complex. And am I right in thinking normally it seems that it's between, say, like £150 to £450, so 160 euros, 170 euros to getting on for 500 euros. What is the example of your annual cost, and is that the same for every owner? Same actual maintenance cost?
Yeah, and we do not do pounds and we do not do euros. So we do Turkish lira, and with a lot of Scandinavians, that Norwegians. So we don't have euros and we don't have pounds. So you need to transfer. So we have the Turkish lira.
So how much lira are we talking?
This year, for next year, the annual general meeting, the AGM, they decided it will be 9,600 per person, and it's equal. Doesn't matter how large apartment you have. I'm not sure if it will be sufficient though, because we really need to do something on the building, and it really quite quickly needs costs. So we'll see if it is sufficient or not, but it's about 10,000 lira per year per person.
Yep.
We used to have a level of £600, and then it has been bargained quite a lot because, but it's cheap. It's really cheap. £600 per year is nothing actually, and for that we get a caretaker, a night guard, security. We get a lot for that amount here in Turkey, so we are very lucky to be here. But of course, if you need to do some major work, it costs.
Yes, and what's happened here the last 12 to 18 months? The lira crashed.
Yeah.
To double half the value of what it was, and within, gosh, was that a week? It was about 2 or 3 weeks. It absolutely tanked. Collapsed, tanked, as we would say in England. And that seemed to have really been affected, because obviously then you've got all import produce.
Yeah, chemicals for the pool, for instance.
Chemicals,
extremely
paints,
expensive.
Yeah, paint. So you've got all of these costs that have pretty much doubled.
Yeah.
And how has that been met with a need to then? I guess it would be sensible to say that the maintenance has needed to double if costs are doubling.
Yeah.
How has that been met as a complex, as a committee, as a group of owners here?
We have owners that can afford to have a second home, a holiday home.
Yeah.
So also they have funds in order to be able to pay for it. But it's always a discussion. But I think people understand that the minimum wages has gone up and all these things. And if we change the currency from Turkish lira to English pound or euros or Norwegian kroner, so actually we're paying less now than we did 10 years ago.
Interesting. And so if majority of foreign owners, you're bringing in those kroner, euros, dollars, pounds.
Yeah.
So potentially not being affected as much as actual people living in Turkish citizens, which has been hard hitting, of course. Interesting. What's been your greatest challenge? Being not only a committee member but being the head of committee, what would you say is the greatest challenge? And also, what do you enjoy the most about it?
If I start with what's the biggest challenge, I think that's the difference in culture.
Okay, interesting.
We Scandinavians, we are a bit more quiet in the meetings, and we are quite pleased with things. We are happy to be on holiday. We use our apartments as maybe just a base for going and see rest of Turkey, travel to Greek islands. We are a lot outside of our apartment. The Turkish, they who have Turkish background, they spend much more time in the complex. They invite a lot of friends and family to the complex, so it's double, triple, a lot more people than actually the owners are present at the complex. The Norwegians, they come in small groups. They are not so many. So the difference in culture might be the most challenging, trying to understand how are the Turkish people thinking, how are they acting. And when we have a meeting, the Scandinavian people, they sit quietly, and if they have something to say, they raise their hands and wait for their turn. But the Turkish, they talk all together at the same time, so it's impossible to understand. And if we raise our voices and say, please wait, we need a translation, they get angry. They think it's disrespectful. But we think it's disrespectful that they talk in our mouth. So we have different limits for what's respectful. So that is a bit challenging, actually. But I love a good argument. So as long as I understand it, it gets really annoying when you don't understand it. And when you try to get a translation, the argument has gone far beyond, so you're not picking up on what's actually going on. But they are all very engaged. The similarities are that they have a huge engagement for our complex and all really wants the best for the complex, but have a bit different ways of doing it. The best, I think, about being the leader of the head of the committee is that I get to know so many beautiful people, and I get to understand history behind other people. You need to love people, I think, because you get people's challenges also very close. But it's also to understand how Turkey works, how the Turkish formality works. We are in Norway coming ahead of Turkey when it comes to something, other things not. So some digital things are working much easier in Norway than in Turkey, but otherwise things are easier in Turkey. So I learn a bit, and I take something home to Norway also, and I can bring some Norwegian thought into Turkey as well. But standing in an office in the notary for hours, getting a translation, that's a bit challenging for me to wait in the bank because somebody else is more important than somebody representing a complex. That's also a bit challenging for me. And then I want to think, why can't they solve this digitally? So, I can be a bit impatient when it comes to the formal needs of Turkish governmental stuff.
Interesting. Well, I love the fact that the greatest challenge and the biggest reward was the cultural differences.
Yeah.
I really love that. I was thinking when you were saying about the challenges of the cultural difference, I was tempted to ask the question, what are the greatest parts of the cultural difference? And you answered that question for me. Can we give our viewers, our listeners, some insight into to Turkish culture, living on a complex, living with whether that's Turkish nationals or foreign Turkish individuals and families? What are some of the cultural joys that you experience? Because we've spoken on the podcast about the handing over of plates of food from neighbours, and you then don't give it back empty, but then so you give it back with something on, so then they have to give it in return. So you've got this wonderful relay of snacks and food, which is fantastic. And the thing about that we'll talk about neighbours and neighbourhood and community, and it seemed in England that there's a sense of loss of community over the years, certainly from what was 30, 40 years ago. You know, you used to leave your doors unlocked and look out for your neighbours' children and whatnot. What's it like in terms of community, neighbours on your complex?
I think we have been quite divided, but we are trying to get closer to know each other. So every kind of party we can arrange that is a mix of Scandinavians and Turkish owners, that's a really good profit from it. The pandemic came and evidently put a stop to that, but we are actually getting to know each other a bit better, and most people are keeping their apartments over years and years, so we get to know each other. You know that we Scandinavians, we are quite direct. So I guess in England you will say blunt. So when we have something to say, and if we need to speak in a foreign language, the language is not so complex either. So it gets very, very blunt. And the Turkish, they really think it's impolite. And they say things all the way around. So they don't say, "Oh, you're beautiful." They say, "You look like a rose," for instance, or something like that. And that's really, it's poetical. So that is one of the beautiful things, I think, about the language, learning a bit of the language. The Turkish, I find them very, very friendly, very, very, I'm impressed at this moment of the year that people are still friendly to tourists, to foreigners. Of course, you can see a bit tiredness of all these people not speaking Turkish, but still we meet great hospitality and friendly people. And I think that is, we are not that kind of friendly towards foreigners in Norway, I think, as we are met in Turkey. So that is the real lovely culture sign, I think, that they are very respectful, very polite, very friendly. And that makes something with your soul, doesn't it?
Yes.
You feel good.
Well, you touched there about the time of the year, and we are recording this early October now. I think we're the first week in October, and we are filming at the lovely 5-star Aquasis Hotel here in Didim, Altınkum, which is the huge one that looks like a ship. Absolutely huge resort. So it's really the hotel has really looks after us here in setting up and riding golf buggies down with the equipment. It's always great fun. But what we're finding now is there's more hotels that are staying open for longer. So even though we're here in October, and some could argue the weather can be a little bit inconsistent. You can have cloudy days. It can be windy. The hotel is still maxed. Every room is full here at the moment. Which is great to hear when you think that this hotel and many were closed down during the pandemic. So it's great that people are visiting now. And you mentioned there's a lot of the locals here who work in tourism. It's 7 days a week.
Yeah.
16, 18 hours a day for 4, 5, 6, 7 months even. And then it's the complete opposite. So there's no real balance. It's literally all or nothing. So you find then that Didim Altınkum not completely shuts down, but it becomes very quiet with a huge less amount of tourists visiting the area.
But still, that's what I kind of like about
Yeah,
Didim,
right.
because it's a city that's not only leaning towards tourism. There's a lot of Turkish living here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a live city even in the wintertime. So when I come, it's not everything closed down. It's not only tourism. It's a really nice city, cozy city with a lot of Turkish people living here all year around, and using the winter time for building constructions, improvements, all these things. So I kind of like it in the winter time as well.
Well, we spoke before we were recording, and I was setting up. You spoke that you try and get out 4 times a year. So, have you ever visited? Do you normally visit during the winter months at all? What do you normally aim for in terms of times of year?
Yeah. I'm normally here also in winter time. I've been here in November and in February, but that's due to the role in the committee. So
Yep.
then I feel that I need to come. And it's quite all right, for a Norwegian, anything is good temperature in the winter.
Yes.
But normally I'm here, a lot of us are here in Easter time. We start in Easter, I think in April. So we come, so I come from April to October, to the end of October. I'll be visiting 4 or 5 times, I think, more or less.
Lovely. Well,
I like May a lot. I like May and June.
May is nice.
Yeah.
You can often find. I do like April because you're coming away from winter. March can be nice, but still very inconsistent. I mean, last winter was the coldest we've had in 50 years here in Turkey, which was brutal. There was still ice. I'll be walking my dogs in mid-March, and there was ice on the puddles.
Yeah.
I know I'm talking to a Scandinavian here, so you'll be like, what's that? You'll be probably 8 foot of snow still in mid-March. But I still think at mid-March it was -7, -8 in Istanbul.
Yeah.
So it was a really freak winter. And I find living here in winter, we spoke about that it doesn't shut down. There are people around. It is interesting living in what is essentially a holiday resort that's set up for sunshine and people. So when you don't have the sunshine and you have a lot less people, I think we go from over 1 million in the season to 85,000 approximately. So that's a huge drop. So it is very, very interesting when again, we spoke about it's all or nothing, and in the summer you've got an influx of people. I think was it Ramadan this year? No, it was Byron. I think they said they were expecting 3 million people.
Yeah.
3 million. And when you think there's an average peak day in season, it's 1 million. So that was really huge. To then go to less than 100,000 in winter. But I know a lot of people over that come, December, January, February, and say you can have sunny days. Just pack a windproof jacket, and they'll go for walks and really enjoy that time. And I know a lot of people that live here who then leave in July and August, because it's so busy and so chaotic, and the traffic's crazy. But then it gives them the opportunity. I dare say Scandinavia may be the same as in the UK. That why leave in July and August when it's sunny in Scandinavia and the UK and other parts of Europe, when you can enjoy the weather in your home country, and essentially, like you said, head out here in May, even October, when the UK, Europe, Scandinavia weather is dropping, and you can still come in and enjoy the sunshine. One question: I woke up this morning and I was packing the equipment, and I thought of something I'd be really curious to ask you and find out. And I haven't asked it before on a podcast, but there's no need to. It's not like backing you in a corner. I'm curious. I'd like to know what you think is the best improvement, the best thing that you've seen here in Turkey, in the area, in Didim, Altink and Mavashir, over the last kind of year or two. What's the best thing you've seen? And that could be anything to do with culture. We spoke about infrastructure. It could be a venue. What's the best thing you've seen happen, develop, whatever, here in the last 2 years?
So you will be surprised.
Okay.
Collecting garbage.
Interesting.
There's less garbage flying around at the beach. I think that is the most disturbing thing for me, that they have not really all over. People are still throwing away garbage at the beach, in the streets, outside, inside my complex. It's beautiful, of course. But for instance, the workers, they don't really care about the immediate outside. So I'm trying to say that when I drive up to the complex, I also want it to be garbage free. I want it to look lovely. I want it to be beautiful from the outside also, not only inside. So I think, I don't know, but I have a feeling, I have an experience this year that the Belediye has taken some actions in order to start to maybe make people more conscious, more aware of not throwing away things, the garbage, all these things, because that's really something that bothers us.
Mm-hmm. It seems like, the for those of you who don't know, we have these huge, what we say in America, dumpsters.
Yeah.
How would we say them in England? Like bins, like
Bin trucks, I don't know.
yeah,
Yep.
huge on wheels. And it seems they're collected, like emptied 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a day. So it's very regular. And you made a good point there that, yes, it's great that the Belediye, the council, are applying their efforts into clearing, but there's also some education there that needs to be in place.
I see it on Instagram. I see they don't have a lot of followers, but actually they are doing quite a few videos to improve the mentality about that, and I think that's important. And also they have a squad picking up garbage at the beach, and that's really, because that's really putting tourists off. I think it's something that we really dislike heavily.
I think that not only from an aesthetic point of view, but also it shows that there's care there if they're from both ways. I mean, you often see Belediye council workers. There always seems wherever you're travelling around in the area, there's flowers being put.
Yeah,
there's
lovely.
On the huge, the road, the main road that we enter the area from Akbuk.
Yeah.
Have you noticed there's all those palm trees now?
Yeah,
all the palm trees, and they're clearing it. So not only from a functional point, but from what really is a beautiful area here, implementing things like flowers, putting flowers in place, tidying areas up. I know there's a number of like play parks and also seating parks now that have been developed for community members to just go and enjoy and sit for children. I think there's even a small dog park that's been created off the just behind the boulevard. And you said you've been here 10 years. I mean, that just wasn't in place 10 years ago, right?
Absolutely not. So it's a huge improvement in these 10 years, and we talk about it quite often, that every year we see some new improvements. And actually, when it comes to the flowers in the city, I used to take that as an example for my caretaker, and I show him as I see how beautiful it's possible to make it, to make circles and these things, because gardening is one more thing that I don't think this area is very used to. Mm-hmm. So I think the Belediye is going up front there as well, and they are showing how you can actually put down gardening, how we can do some gardening around, and that's really nice, because that's,
Well, I asked you what was the best thing that's happened over the last 2 years, so that was very insightful. So if you had a magic wand and a huge pot of budget, what would you do in the area? What would you do to make an impact, to make an improvement, some improvements?
I don't think I'm in a position to really understand what's needed, but I like the way it's heading now. So I think I would just continue the same kind of development that is happening. And what I love about Didim and Didim area is the lack of tall buildings, the lack of skyscrapers. I love that there is plenty of seaside available still. I think I would keep on and be careful about the infrastructure, and when you're allowed to build. It's possible to be very, I think, impatient and want to build as much as possible in the smallest place as possible. So maybe be a bit careful about what you allow the builders to build, and see to that it's good for people's health to have green and blue. And there's plenty of green and blue in Didim, and to keep it still green and blue and with low housing, I think that's really some of the largest values in Didim, that we have that. We are not a tourist city. We don't become that much of a tourist city, but become a nice community. And I think that is important to keep.
That's lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. And you mentioned the colours green and blue there. I do find that there's a lot of people that have never visited Turkey, and I've spoke with guests about this before, that they think it's quite barren, that it's going to be sandy and dry, and with people riding camels around here. And we mentioned about winter, and that we do experience a good amount of rainfall, and that really benefits moving forward to spring, summer, autumn ahead. So we do have a lot of greenery around here, and I think it's a real benefit to the area, and it does surprise a lot of people that visit. They're like, I didn't expect it to be so green. That's incredible. It's what do you experience for people who've never visited Turkey? We talk about some of the misconceptions about the country, about this area. What do you find that never fails to surprise you from people thinking about Turkey? Because there's still some people that think, I haven't been to, I wouldn't go on holiday to Turkey, whether they think it's dangerous or that it's too hot or that people rip you off. All of these misconceptions that we pick up.
Well, my friends, I think they really like the mountains, because we're from Norway, so we really like the mountains. So we like also the climate with the seaside and the mountains, and we understand that the mountains also provide kind of greenery, because you have water, you have fresh water, you have the water you buy on the bottles. It's actually, some of it's really good. Mm-hmm. So they like that. But I think most people are surprised that Turkish people, they go dressed the same way we do, because they think maybe there's a lot of burqas around and all these things. So this area, that it's so secular in Turkey, I think that's a surprise to many people. That it's that the infrastructure is so good, that's a surprise. But also, actually, in this area, I think we really appreciate the climate, that it's windy, so it's quite dry. It's not humid, because it's a difference if you have 30 degrees and humid, or 40 degrees and humid, or if you have 40 or 30 degrees and it's dry. So it's really beneficial for health, when, Norwegians, we have arthritis and we kind of rheumatism, because we're all the way cold and wet up in Norway. So we like that climate. It's dry and quite warm, and that's good. And also for people with any asthma or anything like that, it's really a nice climate. So they are a bit surprised about that it's so beneficial for the health in this area.
Yeah, the sunshine does help. People with arthritis or old injuries from accidents, and they come here and they don't feel them anymore.
Don't
or
have
as
the
much.
pain, actually.
Don't have the
So that's really a beneficial thing. And I think the warm climate, yes, but the lack of humidity due to the wind, it's actually nice. So when you're at the seaside and you have a breeze, you don't feel the heat the same way. So I think that people are really appreciating that.
I would agree on that one. Well, before we wrap up, before we finish, we spoke briefly about the potential of retirement.
Yeah.
For you, not for me. I need to get my head down and still be very, very productive for the next 20 years or so. But you mentioned 4 years could be a possibility. 4 years could be a possibility. Now, if you're thinking about retirement, does that mean you would move out here full time, or would it be more for extended periods of stay? What does that, when you think of retirement and you having a place in Turkey, what does that look like?
I'm not sure, because the winters in Norway, they might be cold, but they are full of snow and snowy activities. So that's actually better than rain here, and to have -20 and snow in Norway is better than having -5 and rain in Didim. So I'm not actually so sure about it, but I think it's a prolonged stay. For sure, I would keep something in Norway to be able to stay in Norway as well. So I would like to have a both like that. But it's for sure a very prolonged stay, and I find Turkey also a very good place to get through to the rest of the world. Istanbul is a good connection to the rest of the world. So if you want to travel a bit, so this is also a good point from traveling from Turkey. It's really nice. So I'm really thinking about it. It's 4 years ahead. My first possibility if I want to retire. And I've started to think a bit about it. Maybe it would be nice to have some bigger place here and be able to stay longer. Yeah,
I think if you have options, if you have options in front of you and ahead of you, that's what it sounds like, then you can make decisions at the time, and 1 year might look different from the next.
Yeah, of course.
because of a number of factors and circumstances. But yeah, life in Turkey, hey. We have a lot of people that I've spoken to that live here or only go back for, say, Christmas or to see family for a couple of weeks in summer. But the opportunities and options are there for people to take. And the thing I really enjoy about speaking with guests like yourself, Eva, is that it gives people value and insight into what's achievable here. We have people that have literally contacted us who have realised that because of these videos, these conversations, they can retire 10 years early.
Yeah.
10 years early, which is huge. I mean, for somebody to realise that they can come off the hamster wheel and enjoy the sunshine and a slower pace of life, because of these conversations, this podcast is unbelievable. We've had people who were going to retire in Italy and now looking to retire here. We have business owners in Australia who are now looking at selling up to move to the area. So to think that we're providing value-giving options through these conversations, but in turn helping the Turkish economy, which we touched on has struggled. So for people to bring investment into the country, into this area, as a result of these conversations is just incredible. So I'd like to thank you for joining me today and and offering value. I do feel we could talk about pretty much anything for a number of hours. So I might tap you up for another podcast at some point in the near future, Eva. But I wish you all the best. Certainly, it's huge respect for not only being on the committee and helping people in your complex, your CITESI, but leading that as well. I know that must have its challenges, which we touched on. So thanks for being here today, and I look forward to maybe sharing a coffee or a beer with you soon.
Thank you. Thanks, same to you.
Cheers.